ninja.
We are not.
If my sister says you're a ninja, you're a goddamn ninja.
Well, welcome back to the Vortex, the video Vortex. I'm Josh. I'm joined here with Donnie,
Yo.
Tiana, and Professor Smoke.
Hey, what's up?
And we're from the All-American Spookshow. Will couldn't join us, but as per usual, I should say, Will couldn't join us. But we're here to talk about the latest video Vortex. Now, the whole premise of this series is we talk about movies that would have been in the old video rental days, but really all the way up to today, because we will throw in like a streaming movie or something that went straight to Blu-ray or DVD that, even to this day. So every once in a while, those will creep in. But for the most part, I'd say the main focus of this series is stuff from the 80s and 90s. And we return once again back to the 90s this month, and we're talking about 1993's release, Brain Smasher, a love story, starring Andrew Dice Clay and Teri Hatcher, from director and writer Albert Pyun. So the notorious Albert Pyun of this type of fare, right? But we actually have done, I want to say maybe we might have done more than one on one of the various, on the podcast or one of these various.
Yeah.
I know we have done Cyborg, right?
Yeah. I was about to say he directed Cyborg, and we did that with Cannon Fodder.
And that's probably one of the better examples of
I was going to say he probably hasn't ever done what you would call a masterpiece, but if so, it would probably be Cyborg.
Yeah,
I don't know how much that's saying. I mean, I love that. I enjoy that movie. I'm not calling it a masterpiece, but for Albert Pyun, it probably is.
the aborted sequel to Masters of the Universe.
Yeah. One thing that Masters of the Universe has that Cyborg doesn't have is living in a box.
Well, maybe that's what Brain Smasher was missing, because the soundtrack on this movie sucks.
Yeah, it did.
There was some funny stuff, at least. I mean, at least it was not taken seriously at all. I mean, obviously, I don't think they were ever intending to do that with, if you cast Andrew Dice Clay right at this time period. But I want to say he's probably, even in 1993, he's probably past the height of his popularity, and he's kind of coming down the backside of things, I would imagine, at this point, right?
Yeah, after his I don't remember what year it was, but what was it? I remember he did a thing on MTV where he did his nursery rhymes, but he didn't really edit the nursery rhymes. He just did them, and it was live, and then he got promptly banned for life by MTV, although they later on, I think, relinquished they let him come back sometime in the 2000s, I think.
Because if you're going to watch any of his movies, it would probably be For Fairlane, and I don't think any of us would suggest you do that.
No, and I don't know. Is that what? I don't know how to say which one is better. I mean, there's probably more money. Well, certainly more money was thrown at the Adventures of Ford Fairlane.
Yeah, because that came out in '90, and I think they were really thinking this was going to be the vehicle that was going to launch them into the stratosphere. And then,
yeah.
As far as this one is concerned, though, I don't remember this movie.
No, I never saw it back then. This is the first time I
saw it back then, or 5 years later, or anything. When I landed on this, I had no idea this even.
No, I remember. I was like, "Oh my god, I remember this," and I remember watching this on cable. In the, I mean, granted, it was the 90s,
and that's why I'm surprised. I used to watch, stuff on HBO, Cinemax all the time, Showtime, and I used to watch the weekend matinee movies and stuff. So you would think at some point I would have seen this, but no, I don't. I have, or if I did, it just went in one ear and out the other, and zero recollection. But I don't.
Oh no, I remember this one.
You would think,
oh my god, I do remember this.
You would think it would be more memorable on some level because of him and Teri Hatcher, kind of coming into prominence at the time. So, and there's tons of character actors in this movie, right? Like people, hey, it's that guy and this guy, especially the police.
Yeah.
Almost every policeman in this movie is like a major character actor of the 90s.
One guy that definitely stood out to me, and I'm like, I know this from somewhere, and then it finally popped in my head was I can't remember his name in the movie, but the lead of the Red Lotus, that which was supposed to be Chinese, but this guy I'm pretty sure is Japanese, and it's it was
Woo?
the son of what's the name on Karate Kid 2, Miyagi's friend that they became rivals.
Soto?
Soto, maybe, yeah,
I think it's Soto.
yeah, it was his nephew, right, or son, I forget, one or the other.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Got me. It's been so long since I've seen those, I couldn't tell you.
But definitely, like this guy is, it was bugging me for a second, then it popped in my head, and then we looked it up. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's who it was. All right.
Yeah, that was Yuji Okumoto, and the character's name was Wu.
He was, like I said, he's a Japanese American playing a Chinese. But that was a running joke in this movie, was that this Red Lotus, the Red Lotus gang were Chinese ninjas, and then this whole thing's gone through. Chinese aren't ninjas, the Japanese are ninjas. So,
Yeah, the whole time. I mean, they say it like 24 times. We're not ninjas, you know. So they're
yeah.
Ninjas crashing the door. We are not ninja.
trying to bounce off the stereotypes, right? Oh, it's a bunch of Asian guys coming in here doing martial arts, so they're ninjas, right? And then the only other term that they ever mentioned in this movie, other than ninja, though, because they never explain exactly what the hell they are, other than just some weird gang of dudes that just come in doing martial arts, right?
There was one time in the beginning, well, when they first were introduced, where they were introduced as Shaolin monks.
Yeah,
Like,
as monks, but they.
I was gonna only refer to the line that the Wu character says is like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life being a kung fu thug.
yeah, kung fu.
That's what they were, kung fu thugs.
Shaolin monks, the Shaolin monks are hilarious to me because they all have this long hair and everything. I mean, if you were a Shaolin monk, you'd be shaved,
And the whole premise of the movie literally is he's trying to eat a flower.
Yeah, the Red Lotus that'll give him supreme power or whatever.
Yeah. Apparently, it's like you eat a red lotus flower, and it's like the Infinity Gauntlet.
yeah.
And Andrew Dice Clay's character is a bouncer. His nickname is Brain Smasher. So that's where the whole title of the movie. I will say, I think this movie might be disserved a little bit by the title. That title is so stupid that I'm sure.
Didn't they have a love story to it too? Brain Smasher love story. So
I mean, in one way, it's kind of an eye-catching title.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell is that about? But then on another hand, if you look back in 1993, you're like, that sounds stupid as shit. And it's got Andrew Dice Clay in it, nah. And then move on to something else. But if they'd have called it Red Lotus or something, something else that would have had more appeal, But you had to get to the main part, which we don't want to give deep spoilers away here, but you had to get to the main part at the end where you finally get the payoff of why his name is Brain Smasher.
And also, we didn't mention it yet, but he actually wears a jacket that it says Brain Smasher across it.
Oh, yeah. I think we should all order that jacket. We should all have our own version of the Brain Smasher jacket.
The All-American Spookshow Brain Smashers.
Spookshow logo on the front, and then on the back, Brain Smasher. I mean, but look, as bad as the acting is, and is what you expect from a Dice Clay movie and everything. I think there is a lot of fun that can be had with it, though. I don't think it's something you can watch over and over again, but it's fun, right?
Yeah. It was better than I thought it maybe would have been. I mean, just judging by the fact that here's an Andrew Dice Clay movie called Brain Smasher, a love story that I'd never even heard of before.
Yeah.
I didn't expect anything out of it. And I'm not saying it's a masterpiece by any means, but yeah, you can have fun with it.
It's nowhere on the level of when we did Never Too Young to Die, and none of us.
That's weird. I was on the same the wavelength with that. I was going to say, here's another movie I'd never heard of, but that movie is phenomenal in the way that it is. It's just outlandish and just way out there or whatever. This one is like forgettable, fun but forgettable, and you can see why it was forgotten. But I mean, not terrible.
I think that's the key point right there, Smoke, is that it's forgettable. There's fun to be had if you're sitting down and watching it, but there's nothing to bring you back to it.
True. Yeah.
Except for that ending, that was pretty like, what the hell is?
Yeah. There's just like I said, the whole running gag of the Red Lotus and the whole Chinese Japanese thing was like that gets played out for a while. You're like, okay, they're still on this, you know.
Yeah, and it was written by, like we mentioned earlier, Albert Pyun. So like maybe if they'd have had somebody that could write the comedy better, for if you're gonna have Dice Clay in the movie, use him. If you think about it, they didn't really use Dice Clay as much as they didn't play him up as much as you think they should. They should really lean into what he was.
Yeah, and like I was talking to Tiana when we looked up some information on this. He didn't seem like the Dice Man to me. Like that was his other nickname. Like he didn't, and I didn't realize this, but his whole act was a shtick of like the whole Italian thing was him just doing the voice or whatever. I mean, yeah, I thought it was over the top and all that back in the day when I saw it, but I never really questioned the fact that he wasn't Italian.
Yeah,
I just thought that was this is just his thing, the nursery rhyme, the dirty nursery rhymes, and all this stuff. But in this movie, I'm like, he doesn't seem very Italian to me. Like his voice doesn't sound like he did when he was doing Fort Fairlane or doing a stand up. And I looked into, I'm like, oh, okay, well, he's not Italian. That's why.
It's funny you mention that too, because that's another weird thing about this movie is that he's doing the Dice Clay thing, kind of. He's not
kind of once in a while. It goes in and out, right?
It goes in and out. But him and his parents are acting like to me they're acting like stereotypical, like 80s 90s New York accent type of people, right? Like that's what they're playing, right? That's the it's in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
What the hell? Like,
but no, he says it like it's Portland, Oregon.
Oregon. Hey, I live in Portland, Oregon.
Because the sister tells Sam to bring this package to Portland, Oregon, where she'll meet her.
And there wasn't there, like, I don't know. I mean, I've been to Portland before, but not. I mean, when I was in the Navy, I wasn't there for any really length of time. Is there a Chinatown there? I guess there is. I don't know.
I don't know. I tell you, man. No, I was in Oregon for a little bit. I loved it out there.
I'm sure it's cool.
It's awesome.
But in the context of this movie, it's like that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I know.
It feels like it's in New York. It feels like New York. But why did they feel that it had to be in Portland, Oregon?
I don't know. Well, see, there is. I'm pretty sure a Chinatown in Seattle, which is very close to Oregon.
They actually did film this in Portland. Like,
oh, okay.
Maybe that's why they're like, hey, let's try not to make Portland like New York. Let's just bring New York to Portland for some reason.
Yeah.
It's a weird choice. Yeah, well, I mean, there's fun to be had though. So we came together though, and we give a 0 through 10 Vortex rating. And this is, similar if you've ever watched our Grindhouse gutter rating. It's similar to that gutter rating where we kind of, what makes it a good video rental type of flick, right? I get to explain it as easy as possible. So 0 through 10, we came up with a score of 3.5. So we couldn't quite put it on the level of even Strike Commando 2 that we watched, back last year, but it's a notch above something like what we watched a few months back with Warhead, right? So it kind of falls right in between those type of flicks.
Yeah, we were talking offline. If you distilled Warhead into the opening scene of the guy getting blown out of his office, the hockey match, and some of the ending conclusion of the POV missile launching and stuff of that nature, you would have at least a good 2-minute, thing that you would watch over and over again.
Yeah. You want to watch it in little snippets, there you go. And honestly, this one's very similar to that. Like, there are certain scenes in it where like, oh, that's pretty good or that's funny, but as a whole,
Yeah, forgettable.
I think though, if you go seek it out and you sit down and you're not planning on watching it over and over or something, it's probably not going to become one of your favorite movies or anything. But just a one-off watch of kind of a time capsule of 1993 and some Teri Hatcher and a lot of character actors that you know from the 80s and 90s and Andrew Dice Clay. It's something fun to watch for an hour and a half, but you probably never watch it again unless you're a really devoted Dice Clay fan.
True, yeah. Like us, well, except Donnie. Donnie's the only one of us who had ever even heard of the movie. But if you're like the rest of us, never even heard of it, there are worse ways you could spend an hour and a half. I guess you could at least get
yeah.
one viewing of this movie is all you really need, and then you can get out your system, right?
Yeah. You feel the need. But honestly, though, let's be honest. If like you're that big of an Andrew Dice Clay fan, you already know about this movie, and you've probably
yeah. And all of his other movies that we didn't really talk about because we're not doing a deep dive. But apparently, he was in a lot of movies as sort of small bit parts, even like Pretty in Pink and these '80s movies or whatever. Like Wacko. You remember Wacko? I put it on. I think I've thrown Wacko on a wheel before, right?
Yeah. No, I think it was on Crafsterpiece.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
One of the choices, but it hasn't ever landed on Wacko or whatever. But he was in that movie.
Well, we did spin the wheel for what we're going to be talking about next month here on Video Vortex, and man, we were joking at some point or another on one of these damn things that we do that we're going to do something about Amityville, and it's like opening the lament configuration. We messed up because as soon as we spun the wheel, wouldn't you know it landed on one of the 85 Amityville movies.
Yeah, I was going to say the odds are actually pretty good that it's going to land on an Amityville movie.
Here we are. We landed on one, and it landed on the 7th one. Amityville: A New Generation from 1993. So we're staying in the year 1993 from Brain Smasher, and we're going to shift gears over to Amityville: A New Generation next month. So that ought to be good.
It's going to be like Star Trek Next Generation, right? Something like that, maybe.
I doubt it.
Oh, okay. Or what about Texas Chainsaw New Generation? Maybe it'll be like that.
I doubt that too. On any level. So yeah, come back to the Vortex next month for Amityville: A New Generation, and of course, like we mentioned, every Monday at 6 p.m. East, right here on the channel and wherever you get your podcast. New episodes of the All American Spook Show come out, and stick right here on the YouTube channel for Grindhouse Gutter and Hammer Horror and Order every month. So for Will, who couldn't be with us, Donnie, Tiana, Professor Smoke, we are the Spook Show, and we'll talk to you next month.
Me, Ed Malloy, bouncer, brain smasher, right? I mean,
You are as stupid as you look.